Good morning, everyone.
Yes, so we can do that thing as well.
I think I know or recognize most people in the room, but those that don't, Dean Hendricks, I'm Dean of the Libraries here, and I'm pleased that you guys are here to talk about open education. And just philosophically where the libraries are going in the next 5 years is we will be pursuing what I'm calling the open agenda and moving slowly. This is a cultural change, not necessarily just a mechanical one. So we'll be moving slowly, educating people along the way, but the open agenda is not just open education, it's also open data, it's also open access, so open access articles. And I think we're starting to see the benefits of the not net neutrality notwithstanding, the openness of the internet kind of maturing in the scholarly realm. So this is a part of a larger strategy of a lot of libraries in the UT system. So thank you for at least listening. If I don't know if you're supporters or not today, we'll hopefully we'll at least pique your interest in kind of the open agenda, and there'll be other things we'll be doing as the semesters progress with open data and open access as well. But open education has been incredibly successful really quickly. And just for most of you guys, just so we all understand what open means, open education means, because it does have a very specific definition. It's no cost. It's an open license. That means you are allowed to retain it, revise it, remix it, redistribute it. There are no limitations beyond citing, the Creative Commons, using Creative Commons licenses and other copyright licenses to allow you to really customize your courses and customize your offerings to your students. At the same time, the no cost is probably what we all get caught up on. It has the potential, and the numbers get goofy in a hurry if you're comparing versus new lists, which we all know that students don't buy new textbooks very much. They're usually used or rented or shared. However, with an OER, they have the textbook right from the start, so there's no lag. They'll have their materials, and then they'll have their materials, I guess on the internet age, forever, which they always say forever in the internet age is 20 years. So forever, they'll have access to this material. Anyway, like I said, the open is more of a cultural shift. So this is kind of why we have these faculty get-togethers to kind of maybe preach the word of this and see if it's the right fit for you. I want everyone to be perfectly clear, because I've talked about this over the last year at various conferences. This is not an infringement on academic freedom at all. You are still free to choose whatever. We are just showing you another competitor in the market space, which happens to be free. It happens to be customizable. It happens to have a lot of advantages. So again, you need to decide what is the best for you and your students and their learning outcomes. Just a little bit about beyond this, we obviously now we're going on our third round of faculty grants. Started when my predecessor, Mary Dixon, started the very first one, which was wonderful. I had worked on several open projects in my previous job in SUNY, including being the co-PI on SUNY Open textbooks. So this was a very natural fit for me when I came in here. The infrastructure was already laid. We had people like Deanne and Mary that were already doing the groundwork, getting this up and running. Some of the things that we're adding on top of that, because it's a cultural shift in the academy, there's a lot of public relations that are going on, and I know that sounds, but we are working with the SGA to crowdfund some of these and to educate the next group of student politicians on ways they can make real tangible differences for their constituents, the students. We have advocated, and when I say we, I mean the directors at the UT system libraries have been up to Austin to advocate on behalf of open education resource, and we had a bill passed. I don't know if you're familiar, SB 810 was passed this last year in bipartisan support. As I say, you had Republicans in this polarized age, you had Republicans and Democrats hugging each other, saying they're going to co-sponsor the same bill. It is a win on the political level as long as you get your message to the right people. As a result, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board has established rules for their new statewide granting program, though I'm going to say our granting program has a lower barrier and gives more money. So you're in the right spot. But this is good for the statewide, and then they're investigating, and I've been talking as well as some of my colleagues have been talking about the best way of if Texas were to do an open education repository, how that would look. And we're really looking at how courses transfer across, like a course at intro biology course at Texas A&M, how that transfers to Texas Tech, how that transfers to UTSA, and then having recommendations from those faculty that use it. That's one of the suggestions that the librarians from the UT system are throwing out there as kind of giving a different flavor to a repository, a more peer recommendation repository. So having that is crucial in our estimation. The last thing is we'll be meeting with Chancellor McRaven, so I'll be making a presentation with my colleague at UT Austin and UT Arlington for the Chancellor on open education. So this won't stop. I just want you guys to know that this is not something that we do and say, hey, now we're done and we did the pilot and now it never sees the light of day. This is operationalized. This is a part in the library's budget. It's no longer a one-time funding. This is in our regular operations budget. We will be doing this work in open education. And a part of that, I'm really proud to say, we just got a promotion reclass for Deanne Ivy, which a lot of you have worked with. She's now our open education coordinator, along with her responsibilities as scholar resource librarian, because of the really great work that she's done in this, and she's becoming an expert. And I look forward to many years working with Deanne on this, because I know she's just as passionate as I am about this. So without any, I won't take up any more of your time. I'll let Deanne get to the program. Thank you, Deanne.
Thank you so much, Danny. And I really did want the focus today to be on our faculty that have implemented OER. So you're going to get to hear from a variety of folks that have tried that out in their classes and talk about how that went and share that with you. So you can take that back and maybe try it out in your classes. Maybe you can share that with other faculty in your departments and let them know, hey, this is something that you could try, and it's making a positive impact on our students. I did want to share with you guys just a few stats, and then I'll go on to our next presenter, Dr. Stan Renard from the Department of Music. But just to give you a little bit of an idea of the impact so far of our OER project here at the UTSA libraries, last semester in the fall, we had just over $1 million in savings for our students in the courses that implemented OER. And that doesn't include maybe other faculty that are using open educational resources in their courses that we don't know about. That is just with our grant recipients. So over the course of the grant period, which is 4 semesters, we're expecting over $4 million savings for our students. So it's a tremendous help for our students, many of whom may be struggling with financial issues. We have a good number of first-generation college students, 46%. So we need to think about those things whenever we're teaching and planning for our classes too. So let me see. So the return on investment is for every $1 spent on OER, $69. So more than 85% of our students, we survey all of our students that are in classes that are taking, they're using OER in their courses. And more than 85% of the students rated the OER as good or as better than a traditional textbook in preparing for tests, accessibility, ease of use, and content quality. And this is not a small number of students. This is 800 students that we're providing this feedback. So they're very happy about it, and it's making a difference, not just in savings, but in learning outcomes. So one of the things that we're looking to do, and this may be next year, but we're in conversations with UC Davis and the founder of KimWiki. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that project, but we're talking with them about potentially looking at learning in the courses too. Right now we're just doing student feedback, getting student perception feedback of OER, getting feedback from faculty that are using OER in their classes and collecting that. But we really want to look at learning too. The other studies that have been done that look at learning with OER, it's that they're good or better than a traditional text with learning outcomes. So it's really exciting, and I'm so glad to be a part of this project. And it's been wonderful to work with our faculty that are presenting today. Over the course of last year and last summer, we did a lot of emails communicating about available OER for their classes, preparing a research guide that compiles articles from the library's collection. So I hope today you're going to get a taste of different ways that you can implement OER in your courses, and then we'll have a chance to ask questions of our faculty presenters at the end. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Stan Renard to talk a little bit about using OER in his music class with our humanities librarian, Emily Cox. And so we can see they worked really heavily on a blog with the students in the class. So this will be an exciting, different way to use OER. So.
Okay, great, super. I'm Dr. Stan Renard. I run the music marketing program here at UTSA, which is a very multidisciplinary program that lives in the music department, the Department of Music. And one of my basic survey courses is this MUS 2263 Intro to the Music Industry. I worked closely with Emily on developing a platform. And so anyway, I'll get right into it. So it's a survey course that covers a lot of topics. Anything from music distribution to copyright and licensing to branding to, you name it, it's in there, And I was looking at textbooks, and I used textbooks in the past, and they're pretty expensive. But my biggest issue, they're not current. The data was old. By the time it hit the shelf, it was old. And it's ridiculous when I have to say to the students, hey, the data is not good. Go to this link, and the data will be accurate. Why am I not using the link right away and bypass the entire textbook? So that was the idea here. Besides, I wanted to engage them. So I saw, a few observations. Often students do not buy the textbooks because they can't afford them. That's, out of my students, I'd say at least half of them never bought one, because they couldn't, they could navigate the course without using it. It's probably my fault, but at the same time, they would have bought it if they could afford it. When they did buy it, they do not read them consistently. So there was another observation. So I wanted to create a system that makes them accountable for reading, for the readers, okay? And finally, what I just mentioned, the currency, textbooks, as soon as they are published, they are already updated. So we tried to find a solution, and the solution was to use free available resources that were timely. So whatever was usually blogs, podcasts, and YouTube videos or other type of videos, right? And articles that I would find that were still relevant. And we wanted to engage them. So I have access to tons of resources. I sent Emily a list that, I've been collecting this list of resources. I have probably thousands of links. I can't use all of that, but we try to find a couple of resources that made sense for the students for each topic, and we structured that this way. So I'll let Emily talk a little bit about the platform that we used and how we engaged them.
Right, so pretty quickly after Stan got the grant in the spring, I approached him about possibly putting the open resources he used on an open platform for a few different reasons. So if you know Stan or see his energy, he has a very entrepreneurial spirit, and I thought maybe he'd be willing to try something like this. Also, by taking it to a blog platform, the students could then have that link for as long as the blog is up, so they can return back to it, and especially for music marketing students, it's very career-oriented, and they're going to be going into jobs more than likely in the music industry after they graduate. So they can possibly take this blog link to potential employers, internships, and say, hey, this is what I'm doing in class. And also Stan is a national, international figure in the music industry and has a lot of partnerships with different people. And I told him this is something that you could then take and show people, hey, this is what I'm doing in class. I know that he has a pipeline program with a local high school here.
East Central High School.
Yeah. So the platform we use is called Humanities Commons. I'm the humanities librarian here, so I had a little bit of familiarity with the platform. So it's run through the Modern Language Association as part of their Scholarly Communication Division. And so one thing you can do is it's basically a repository where scholars can put teaching and research materials. And there's also another function where you can create WordPress blog sites. So Stan and I created a course readings blog through the Humanities Commons platform. And we spent last summer basically building out this platform, adding the functionality. So every day, students had a different reading, a video, or a podcast that they could look at. And we also worked on creating a rubric for students, which was really interesting. So every time the student commented on that reading for the day, they had to add another link to a resource that they found that was related to that reading. So by the end of the course, this kind of non-traditional textbook had hundreds of links to different readings on issues in the music industry. And so in the fall, the first day of class, I went to the class with Stan, and I helped students get registered for the blog. So this allowed them to, when they commented, they had their photo or whatever they wanted as their avatar, so they felt like they were a part of it. And also talk to them a little bit about some of the information literacy concepts that we're interested here in the library, and talk a lot about students as information creators instead of just consumers. So this URL was open where they could send the actual URL to anyone they wanted. We decided to not make it search engine searchable in like Google and things like that. Just to sort of tell students that they were working somewhat in the public, but it wasn't going to be open to Google.
It's a lot of content.
Yeah.
One thing I love about this, and I learned that from how you teach audio technology. So the way you teach the technology, if you just teach it in class, you're wasting your time. You need to send the how-to over, in between the classes, and then in class you do it, right? It's just the experiential part. I wanted something of this nature because I wanted to cover all these topics. It's a lot of content. And some of the students complain that it's a lot of content. But hey, you're paying for your education, you're paying for content. So, you're getting what you're paying for. So, but anyway, I wanted them to, they only had up to the time of the class to read and post. But I also, I'll show you a little bit, what my rubric were, right? A little bit later. But they had up to the time of the class to post it for full credit. But they had to post a post, several sentences plus a link. So the idea of the repository is that if you were the first one to absorb the content, the first one to post, you had a lot of flexibility. Now, if you're the second one, you have not only to read, but now you have to read also the comment of the first person and look at their link, so you don't post the same link. and so forth. So if you're like the procrastinator that is going to post, 5 minutes before class, now, it's not really going to happen for you, because you're going to have to read all of this content. So it encourages them to be the first ones to do it. Well, of course, it's not always the case. And I did accept late assignments, and it was timestamped. So as you noticed, what I mean by timestamp, so let's say I click on this, and it said, okay, October 31st, and this one was posted at 12:32 p.m. Now, my idea of the repository, I'm reusing this for my next class. And I might add or more content, raise the standard even more, and then they're going to all have to read all of this and add to it. So the difference between this and Blackboard is at the end of the semester with Blackboard, it wipes it all out for them. They don't have access. We have access to it, but the students don't. Here, they always have access. So Emily mentioned something about the pilot program I created in the community. It's the only music business 2-year program in the high school in the country. It's right here in San Antonio. They're going to get a Grammy for it. It's awesome. But anyway, it's huge. They have 80 students. It's a natural feeder program for us. We just get students. It's awesome. But they needed to build content. There is no textbooks for high schools, right, in this field. So I provided them with all my material. Of course, it's too much for high school groups, but the faculty member who works with me over there was able to adapt it. So it has a lot of capabilities, and I really enjoyed that kind of work that we've done. Since then, the state of Georgia has asked us to basically do this in all our schools. So it's really taking off. It's pretty cool. Let's get back to this. Sorry about that. I wanted to show you the blog. So it takes a little while to get back. Okay. All right. So in terms of the blog, as I said, I wanted them to, and I monitored. I don't want swears. I don't want any kind of content that doesn't make sense, or if they just trying to post very general comments that don't have any meaning. I wanted a general comment. Did they enjoy? Did they learn something? Did they not learn something? Most of them did. And then something specific. I really was this particular topic really piqued my curiosity, and then they post a link to another article, because I'm only one mind. But now you have all these, I had 26 students in this class, so I had 26 students, and then what does it do? It increases my bank of links, my bank of resources for the future, because I get it from them. So they provide content, which, there's so much content in the music industry. So that was really helpful. So they all had to include a link, and all the links are there. In terms of the surveys that the students took, what was the most important for them was when they use a textbook for a class, price was the most important, and is it, can they use free or free resources? So that's the two top answers. Overall, how much would you say your blog contributed to your success in this class? Sorry, you got cut off. In my class, it was about 70% said that that blog contributed to their success. Okay, so here a couple students, quotes from my surveys and some of the surveys that we took in the library as well. I have no preference with or without the textbook, but this class really seemed to be interactive without using the textbook. I feel it was easier to grasp the information, retain it, rather than me going home and reading it straight from the book myself. The blog helps a lot. It's easier than going to buy a textbook. It's cool because I always have a way to go and find the information if I ever need it. So that was good.
And Stan, you have a really great line, and I just want to make sure that you get
Oh, this one?
No, what's something you said in the past. But, so a lot of students think, they go in, oh, no textbook, so you might think you have lower expectations for the course, but you're actually telling them, no, I actually have higher expectations.
I do. Because they're accountable. Because it's time-stamped. They're basically grading themselves. It makes it easy for you to grade them. If they, posted a comment, it fulfills the rubric, they put a link, something that, is not a general link, easy to find. that's it. They get their check mark for that particular reading. So that made sense for me. It was easier for me to grade them rather than trying to have a conversation about a reading in class that the whole class had to do, and you don't know who did it. Obviously you do, because there's only 1 or 2 students who always answer the question. In that case, they're all more engaged. So the overall engagement was improved. So I had a couple of other fairly positive reviews for this. We had a couple glitches, but I taught a course that was called Leading Change. It was a business course in a previous institution. And the whole idea of the course was I kept on changing the platform every 3 or 4 weeks. Oh, and then I sent them service. Oh, they hated it. But that's the world that we live in. You need to adapt. You need to be adaptive. So this is, the fact that it doesn't work, but it really did work. Sometimes they couldn't log in with their own profile. They had to post as a guest. But there was always a solution. And the second day of class, we brought the students here to the library, and you did a coaching with them. So that was really useful, and I think they enjoyed that. So my takeaways for this, it was a perfect fit for my class. It made sense for this particular course. It helped me reinforce the relationship with Emily, which is really important for me. And also between my students and the resources in the library. A lot of the students I find at UTSA don't even come here. So we have to bring them here. So it was great to bring them here the second day of my class. My students almost never come here because we have the music resources in our own building. But now they're all coming. So at least that's my perception of it. And also, I direct them to meetings here, create events for them downstairs and so forth. So it's nice for them to see. At least that's the way I see it. Obviously, we don't agree on that, but that's okay. It allowed us to build an open source repository that we can keep reusing, and that's important for me. And it made students accountable, so that was good. It allowed to implement VR technology. I used the money from the grant to buy 20 VR headsets. So one portion of the technology, the videos now are all in 360, 4K. So you're inside the video, you're inside the band. So that's one part. Another one is selling tickets. You can visualize your seat and look in the room. So instead of like having a just chart of the concert hall you're going to and just clicking and having no idea how far you are from the stage. Okay, so that VR technology is really taking on. So that was very useful for me. It allowed me to attend a couple conferences to learn more about the content that I'm going to implement in this class. And I'll never go back to the traditional textbook for this particular course. Not now. I think this really makes total sense. I like the blog, I like the platform. I think it works for us. So that's what I have. Thank you, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. Now we would like to shift focus, so a different class. This is a math class. Professor Jonathan Brox and Cynthia McCowan, Director of Tutoring Services, will be talking a little bit about implementing an OpenStax textbook in a college algebra course. So they did a lot of really wonderful hard work over the summer. I remember talking with them as they were getting into the spring, as we were heading into the summer, and working with tutors to make that a success. So I'll turn it over to you guys to share your experience.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Brooks, and I am the lead instructor and instructional coordinator for the Math Matters program. If you haven't heard of the Math Matters program, it's part of the Pivot grant here at UTSA. See heads nodding for the Pivot grant. Good. And if you know about the Pivot grant, then you know it's about preparing students to transition usually from high school life or transferring into UTSA and succeeding at university life here at UTSA. Part of that, and our part in the Math Matters program, was identifying roadblocks for students, and a roadblock course in particular for students across the country is the college algebra, STEM track college algebra, what we call our college algebra for scientists and engineers. And as part of this grant, we wanted to, well, in short, raise success rates for this class, raise persistence, and have students persist in their majors, in their STEM majors, by getting through what a lot of students see as a roadblock here in this college algebra course. And math courses in general, I understand. I'm a math instructor, so I don't feel that way, but I know I know a lot of students do. The way that we under the Pivot grant, the way that we're trying and succeeding in helping students progress through these courses is that we're employing what's known as the Emporium model. And I'm not going to get into a discussion of the Emporium model right now, but suffice it to say that it's about active learning and students learning by doing math instead of by listening to someone talk about math or talk about doing math or watching someone else do math, that someone else being the instructor. And part of the Emporium model is that we need to have, well, implement active learning in the classroom and outside of the classroom, and have students working with, an essential part of the Emporium model is that students need to be working with commercial instructional software, right? And in a math course, it's critical that students are doing a lot of homework, a lot of practice problems, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with the programs that we typically use in a math course, My Math Lab probably being the, or any of the My Labs. You've probably heard of the My Lab software from Pearson. My Math Lab is the one that we generally use most often, but there's a ton of them out there, Connect, Math, and I won't go down the list. Those are probably the two most frequently used. But these programs are, first of all, expensive for students. I know in particular my math lab is about $100 per student per semester. That gets expensive really quickly as you get more and more students and more classes using this software, but it's an essential part at not that program in particular, but a program that students can use that has what we call algorithmically or randomly generated problems for them to work, and automated feedback, all of that, and instant automated feedback. That's an essential part of the process of students doing math and the active learning process in our Emporium model. So our situation, and now getting to the OER content, our situation was and is that we have to have that component in our course. It's essential to student success in our course, but there are a lot of downsides for the student. Number one being the cost, definitely, but also in the past couple of years I've done a lot of research, and I've even done a little bit of consulting with some of the publishers, and I understand that there's one author or multiple authors of a textbook, and then there's programmers of the problems on the website or in the program, and there's other creators of other resources like notes and videos. And a complaint that I've always had about the commercial software like my Math Lab, sorry, I'm going to continue to pick on them. That's just, anyway, is that it's inconsistent. The problems that my students are working in the program are not quite like what they see in the textbook, and that's not quite like what they're seeing on the videos. And as a mathematician, I don't mind that so much because it helps my students challenge themselves and push their understanding. But in a freshman level class, in an entry level class, the reality is that students definitely need that consistency across their resources, and they learn better by getting the same message from resources and a consistent message across all the resources. So we had that struggle, and we have that struggle with commercial software and the commercial publishers. One way that we attempted to address that, and that we have successfully addressed that, is by turning to OER. Of course, OER it has the same challenges with consistency, even more so, in my experience, even more challenges with consistency across resources, but that's what I want to speak about and the work that we've done to that effort over the past year. The breakthrough for us was, and Deanne mentioned, the OpenStax textbook. The big breakthrough for us was that there is an open source program like one of those commercial instructional softwares, like a MyMathLab or like a Connect Math. This isn't the only one, but it's definitely the best one for our purposes, called WebWork. And I'll pull it up here in a second and just show you. I'll ask you to work some math problems here in a minute. No, I promise. Not going to torture you this morning with that. But we found, actually before the Math Matters program came about, the math department found this really wonderful program, open source program called WebWork, that allows you to generate those random problems and practice problems that students need to work to learn their math material, and it was free to the student, not free to us. And our OIT department has done a great job standing up servers and supporting. We get a ton of support from OIT here at UTSA. They've been fantastic, and they're on board, just like the library here. They're on board with the idea of OER, and their support. We definitely couldn't have done what we've done without their support. But they helped us get the WebWork server running, and the way it works is, before I bring it up, the way it works is that math instructors across the nation that have used this program, they coded their own. Math instructors that knew how to code, knew how to program, they coded their own problems, and they upload them to a national problem library. And then other schools that come a little later, like we did, join the party a little bit later, are able to just freely use those problem sets that other instructors have coded. So that's what we did. What we did starting summer of 2016, we adopted the OpenStax College Algebra textbook, and we started using within the Math Matters program this WebWork program, and it was great in theory, at least. It was great. I say in theory because as a math instructor, I thought, well, every math textbook really has the same information. It doesn't matter if I use a Pearson text or an OpenStax text in terms of 2 + 2 = 4. Yeah, it doesn't matter what text I'm using. 2 + 2 is still equal to 4. And I found that the OpenStax text did a great job of explaining everything. We were happy with it. And the WebWork program had a lot of great problems already built into it. So we took the text and we took the WebWork program and we started using it. And we didn't have as much success with it as we had hoped, because of the consistency issue. Because when the textbook explains a mathematical concept and then they get a question about that same mathematical concept in the program, but it's worded a little differently. And even just a slight wording change, and that throws students off. And there was definitely more than a slight wording change between the OpenStax text and problems in web work that were coded by someone across the country that had never even looked at the OpenStax text. So that was an issue for us. And so much so, I'll be open and honest here, that I argued against using OER for about a year, actually, after that first experience. I thought, because of our model, our Emporium model, where the active learning and the software that students use with the automated feedback is such an integral part of our model, of our program, I argued we need something that is consistent, at least as consistent as possible, and I argued that the publisher materials, they put a lot of work into building those materials, and we're doing our students a disservice by using these OER, at least in the form that they were in. And I stand by that statement to this day. But the great thing that happened was that we got this grant, and we got, through the Pivot grant, we have funding and support, lots of support from administration here through the Pivot grant, and we were able to really revamp the OER that we were using. And what we did was, and I'll show you in a moment, but what we did was we started with the OpenStax text as the baseline, and then from there, this happened in this past summer 2017. Using the OpenStax text as a baseline, we and a team of student workers under my supervision, we went back and we started from scratch with the web work program and coded 500 or 600 new problems. Instead of pulling from what was already there, we created an entire semester's worth of problems, literally hundreds of problems. And since I was the only one that knew how to code, it was me. I don't want to take credit or blame for that, but I coded 500 or 600, I lost count somewhere along the way, math problems into the web work program. And they are all perfectly consistent, much more consistent, certainly much more consistent than they were when we were just pulling problems from the National Problem Library, but much more consistent with our textbook than even a commercial software where you have one programmer building problems and another author writing the textbook, and they don't really, I've seen that process in the commercial, part of, publisher part of the world, and it's not always as consistent as one would hope, ideally. We got a team together in a room for the summer, and we built this out in a perfectly consistent format. And I want to show you what we've got here. Here in web work, in the UTSA domain. I won't go into this in great detail. I just want to show you what we've done and what's possible. If I can get my passphrase right. I'll bring up I wanted to go to chapter 2, so I didn't scare you guys too much with the advanced math, but I'll try section 4.1. Here. This is a problem, just briefly, this is a problem that was coded straight from the OpenStax textbook, chapter 4, section 1, problems 25 through 27 in the OpenStax text. This isn't something that students need to worry about, but this tells us that it matches word for word. The numbers change every time a student opens the problem, but word for word instructions, format and everything exactly what they see in their OpenStax textbook in section 4.1. Every problem, this goes to the consistency question, every problem that we coded has links to resources here. This is one of the things that was the easiest to work into each problem. The math was the hard part. But this is what I'm most proud of, and what I want to say, are most proud of here. That every single one of these problems links back to the OpenStax textbook. There's the example that goes along with this problem, and it's worded the same way, and it's worked the same way. And it also links back to notes that we've created. Another thing that we did was we created a whole series of guided notes for the students. I'm gonna just pull that up and give you a glance at what those look like. So we've got the text, and then on the Pivot website, those are our tutors, wonderful tutors. On the Pivot website, students from day one have access to all of our guided notes that were written to accompany the OpenStax textbook. So this is something that we created this past summer for every single section that we cover in the textbook, and they follow line for line what students see in the OpenStax textbook, and they help students read through the textbook, and they help students pick out the important information in the textbook. And this is something that a lot of publishers do, but again, something that students pay for. But we were able to bring this and generate this for our students in an OER format. We also link out to videos.
The slope of a linear function.
Sorry, none of the speakers were on. But another thing that we did this past summer was we had our team of student workers look for videos on YouTube, or we created our own videos. We created, I think we have links out to like 200 videos. About half of them are high quality videos that we found on YouTube and linked within each problem set. So it's not just students go to youtube.com and search for this concept, which is okay, except that students find the concept explained in a different way, which is not horrible, but still it's a roadblock for students. I mean, the more different kinds of explanations they get, the better. But here we have a video that explains the concept the way we explain it in class, the way the textbook explains it, and is most helpful to our students. And they don't get distracted by cat videos, except this seems new. I don't remember that happening before. But we do have here, on the Pivot website, our instructional videos. This is just one of the chapters. We've got a good couple hundred here. Many of them, what was one? Many of them created, this is one, see how it says UTSA here. Created by the tutors that work in our lab. So we know that we usually do this when we go to YouTube and we can't find a video that tells it just the way we want it. We create our own. So we created over 100 videos accompanying more than 100 YouTube videos. We created guided notes to accompany the OpenStax text to help students understand the material. And the big thing for me anyway was we coded hundreds and hundreds of problems into the WebWork system. All of those resources perfectly consistent with each other, and much more so than I've ever seen in OER before. And our students have told us, and our student workers have told us, this is better than what they get from the professional, from the publishers, from the commercial software, and from the commercial textbooks. So we're really excited to have done this. We've had, in the past couple of years, definitely maybe around 1,500, 12 to 1,500 students work through our OER resources. They save, even if you, I understand the comment that students don't buy textbooks. I would second that, especially in a math class. Students don't crack the textbook in a math class typically, but our students do, as we encourage and require active learning. But even if you say that students don't buy textbooks, the software that students use, they have to purchase the software. And my math lab costs about $100 per student per semester. So we've already, with 12 to 1,500 students, do the math there, I can't right now, I apologize. That's a lot of money. And as we expand next year, we're expanding out. This is college algebra. We're expanding out to our new Math for Business class. As we continue with college algebra and move into our new Math for Business class with this same model, this same setup, next year we're gonna impact somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 students. And even if it's just the $100 for my math lab, that math I can do. 5,000 students times $100 per student, that's $500,000 next year that we're gonna save our students just on the program, not even talking about the textbook. So that's huge. And then in the following year, we're going to move out and expand to our pre-calculus class, and this is all just gonna compound and create a huge impact. It already has, but it's gonna create a bigger and bigger impact across all of our core math courses. Well, all the ones that we support, which I hope will be a growing list as we go through the next few years. All right, I think I've probably run a little long on my time, I apologize. We're excited about what we're doing, and I'm happy to take questions if you've got them after, when we get to the Q&A portion. But thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Next we have Professor Christina Frazier to talk a little bit about using library paid for materials. This was something that they piloted in an earlier grant year in a smaller number of courses, and it's grown. And they are now using this in all of the sections of writing composition. And it's another amazing example of a librarian faculty partnership. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Christina Frazier. First, let me tell you a little bit about my department. It's not an official department. I teach freshman composition 1 and freshman composition 2. And we are part of the writing program, which is separate from the English department. And what it is all the students who come into UTSA who have not tested out via AP or any of the other ways you can get out of taking freshman composition, like taking it at another college, that sort of thing. They have to take our course. So it's required, it's core, it's something that people are not super excited to take. So anything that we can do to get students engaged and on board with our message is important, because writing is time consuming and they would generally prefer to be doing other things. One of the largest barriers, I think, in our sort of the way we teach and keeping us from getting our message was the 1013, that would be the first half of writing composition, was the textbook. So I was out a few years ago because I had my daughter. And when I came back, this was our textbook. It's over 4 pounds. It is a custom edition by Pearson. And I don't know if any of you have any sort of, if you've ever used custom editions, but this is cobbled together from like 7 different textbooks, and it contains a bunch of different readings, like articles and stuff that people in our faculty had liked from a previous textbook. So it's basically a mess, and the publishers didn't do things like change any of the typos when we brought them up to them, and so our students were paying for something that couldn't be sold again over Amazon, because we were the only people using it, and it was just sort of a ridiculous situation to be in. So I got myself voted on to the the textbook committee because I said this can't stand. This isn't working out for the students. It's not working out for the faculty. We need to find something new. So in 2016, I applied for and won the individual grant, $1,000 one. And I used one of the SUNY textbooks that Dean Hendricks talked about earlier for a class, but there were some problems with it. It focused specifically on social sciences, which would not be sort of general to all of our 1013 students. And also 1013 is an expository class, expository writing, not argumentational writing, and this book had a little bit of both. But despite that, the book was really good in a lot of ways, and I actually still use parts of it in both of my classes. It just wasn't really good. And one of the reasons why we haven't been able to use like an OpenStax or something like that is because they don't do composition textbooks. I don't know if you guys know this, but writing curricula across the country are very different from state to state. What people think is important differs from state to state. Some colleges are still having students write about literature their freshman year, some aren't. It's not like, it's not as standardized across the country. So there are no sort of big textbooks that we could sort of grab and go, like an OpenStax, which was kind of a bummer. But so what we wound up doing is I wound up applying the next year with 2 of my colleagues for the group grant, and we won it. And we developed basically reading lists. We do still have a textbook. It's slim. It's way under $100, and that kind of gives some nuts and bolts about writing. But as far as the articles and everything, most of those could be found on the library databases. So what we did is we collected them all together. And to give you an idea of other things that we were up against, and you can grab my handout on the way out if you want. It's got my email address if you want to contact me. There were 25% of the students who did not receive financial aid until after the 4th week of class, and sometimes even then they didn't buy the textbooks. And then 33% of my students did not purchase at least one of their textbooks because of the price. So I noticed that I've been full-time here since 2003. I noticed that over time, fewer and fewer students were buying textbooks, and I was waiting for them to get the money to do it, so I was kind of like putting off some of my assignments longer and longer, and it just wasn't working out. So I needed something from day one that we could start working on, or otherwise I was going to wait until after midterm to start teaching. It just wasn't working out. So we knew that had to go, and we started to work on compiling the online text that's through the LiveGuide system through the UTSA Library website. So let me go ahead and show you what it looks like. Yeah, okay. So here it is. This is what it looks like, and the communications team at the library made us this, I love it, this cover for the book. And then at the bottom here, it talks about sort of the boilerplate grant information about how research has shown that open and low-cost learning materials available on day one help improve student engagement. And I found that although this needs work overall, that has started to be the case. Let me sort of walk you through a section of the book. Let's see, one that is pretty well developed is digital dualism, augmented reality, and AI. So here are some of the sources that we've put together. Like we have little icons showing that this is from the internet overall. These are through the UTSA database, or one of them. And if you log in once to your UTSA account, the proxy is embedded so they don't have to keep logging in every time, which is nice. And we also want to work on, after we finalize what we're gonna do for the next semester, this summer, we're gonna publish it as a PDF and have it available for students just to use as a PDF so they don't have to mess with this if they don't have any connectivity or something. We have the articles separated out from multimedia. We've got videos, we've got podcasts. We even have an ebook for the political correctness section, podcasts, articles. And overall, the use of this has been pretty smooth. My department is pretty happy with it. For those people who've chosen to adopt it, that would be we have about 40-ish, depending on student enrollment, we have about 40-ish teachers. We're not all non-tenure track. But there are about 30 people and like at least 20 people who are really hardcore into this. And so if you start thinking about the savings that way, the savings that Darren, Pam, and I got just from using this for the sections we taught of 1013 was over $15,000. But when you start working in all of the other faculty in my department, and we have an ongoing sort of, persuasion campaign to get all the other people on board, I think we're looking at over hundreds of thousands of dollars for just 1013. I found out, it was kind of gratifying, some of the faculty in my department are also using this for 1023 for their students. And although I, absolutely think that students should be researching on their own and learning that, this is definitely also good for new faculty who are coming in, or even TAs who are forced to come from the English department and teach freshman composition in our department. Because it gives them at least something to sort of, be able to assign from. So that's worked out. Let's see. Oh yeah, $100,000. In a survey we conducted at the end of last semester, they said most of the faculty say that they use the book about once a week or so. So that's pretty thorough usage. Some things that they want to see us do to develop the anthology more is to have like critical thinking questions and sort of like head notes, I guess you could say, for the articles. Stuff that helps more synthesis for the students so they can start to sort of put it all together better. So that's one of the things that we'll be working on this summer. We also want to clean up some of this. If you look at the topics on the side, some of them are very, very targeted, like high strength steel and natural disasters. So that's a little bit more focused than maybe we necessarily need. But that doesn't mean that we'll get rid of the articles. We're going to try to make this a little bit, like nobody complained about navigating, but we do want to separate these categories out into, like here are STEM topics, here are more humanities topics, so that they're sort of more navigable for students according to their majors, that type of thing. But it's a work in progress. It's been great. I've worked with Deanne and Tara on this, and I think it's only going to get better. If we can find an open source textbook that talks about the nuts and bolts of writing, I think that'll be even better. Because I think that, again, because my class is not like enormously popular to take, and it's core, it's required. Anything we can do to ensure student success and to get people on board from day one is absolutely incredibly important. So we're just trying to do it. All right, that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Next we have Professor Professor Gina Amatangelo in Department of Public Administration to talk a little bit about using OER in a public administration course, the Intro to Public Administration course. I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, and I'll try and go quickly so we can have some time for questions. Okay, so I was always sensitive to the cost of textbooks when I was choosing textbooks, and so when Carolyn Ellis from the library approached me a few years ago about considering open source materials, I was really open to it. I really wanted things to be affordable and accessible to students, and I also wasn't crazy about the textbook that I was using in our Introduction to Public Administration course. And when I talked to my colleague who also teaches the course, she felt that a lot of the textbooks were designed for graduate students. So we were both open to experimenting. And so I developed a reading list for Public Administration and American Society, and then we received the grant as a department in 2017 to further refine that list and to adopt it for all sections of the course. And I teach 3 courses a semester, and students are not required to buy textbooks in any of those 3 courses. So if we're here today to preach the good word of open educational resources, I am officially a convert. I really like it, and I think it's, I'll show you some ways that I've approached it. So everybody's talked about the cost savings, so I think that's really evident. The thing that I like about it is your ability to customize your course. So I'm no longer bound by the topics that are covered in the textbook. I can really design the course exactly as I want to teach it. The fit is right because I'm picking readings that are tailored to an undergraduate audience. And it allows me some flexibility. So for example, in the senior seminar that I teach, it's a contemporary issues class where we focus on building students' research and writing skills, but it's also the capstone course for our degree program. And I feel really strongly that students in that course, I don't want them to go out into the world until they've really refined their career goals and prepared for their job search process. So I spend a few weeks at the beginning of the semester working with career services to get them ready for the job search. And I have one textbook that I use just for that, that's available online through the library. And then I use completely different course materials for the rest of the course. And it allows me that flexibility to make that shift in the units of the course. I think that it buys a lot of goodwill with your students. So sometimes students come into this classroom and we have to overcome this perception that we're out to get them. And when you tell them on day one that they don't have to spend any money on the materials in your course, they start to think that maybe, just maybe you're on their side and that you want them to succeed. So it sends that message. As Christina said, sometimes at the beginning of the semester we have this challenge of students not having their financial aid money, or maybe the bookstore only bought 3 copies of your textbook. So you find that I think students, if they're going to read at all, they're most likely to read at the beginning of the semester, and yet we have those weeks at the beginning when they don't have it. So when you move to open source materials or free materials, then you have a smooth start to the semester. Everybody has the materials from day one. It's convenient for me. I teach on both campuses. Sometimes the night before an 8 a.m. class, I realize it's been a really long time since I looked at the course materials, and I have access to all of my course materials online, either through the UTSA library or through Blackboard, and I can access it anywhere. There's no more carrying around, those big heavy textbooks. And it's also encouraged me to think differently about how they're going to get the information. So most of the material that I put in front of them are readings, but sometimes it's a podcast or a radio show or a video, just to mix it up a little bit. Okay, so these are the approaches that I've taken. The other presenters today were here to show you the innovative ways to offer free and reduced cost materials. I'm here to show you the easy ways. So in one of my courses, I just have asked that the textbook, that the library purchase my textbook as an ebook. And that's really simple. You just email Deanne, and she can tell you how long it will take to get it. But that's been really wonderful because the students can either download the chapters or they can access them online at the library. And then they always have the option to purchase a hard copy textbook if they like, but everybody has access to the course materials. For our 11-13 class, we've developed a course reading list across the department, and we use a range of things. So some of them are open source materials that are available online. Some of them are textbook chapters. We've chosen our favorite chapters from different textbooks, and we've worked with Deanne to make sure we're following fair use guidelines. We use journal articles, contemporary articles, and case studies. So it's a mix of things, and then everything is either available on the syllabus that students can click through a link, or it's available in a folder on Blackboard. And Patricia has done a really good job on this in posting the readings with discussion questions. So we're really guiding students to what we want them to know and what we want them to get out of the reading. So these are a few resources. Deanne and others suggested these first two websites. So these are open courses. And if you want to take a look at these, you might find things in your discipline area that are that would be of interest or of use to you. When I explored, I didn't find a course that fit off the shelf that I could just grab and use, and so that's why we developed our own reading list. I did think it was an interesting, it was interesting to look at how others organize their courses, and more so than just seeing someone's syllabus online, you can actually see the homework assignments that they're giving. You have access to a lot of course materials here that even if you don't use them off the shelf for your class, you can learn a lot, I think, from colleagues by looking at these. Lumen Learning is a site where you can pay for access to course materials, but they do have some things available online, so I've used some articles and videos from there. I would say the best resources, though, are the UTSA librarians and your own bookshelf of, sort of what are the things over time that you really look to as key materials in your discipline. The things that I would suggest for anyone who's considering this, just start a little early. If you're asking the library to order the ebook, you want to make sure that you give them time to do that before the start of the semester. If you're organizing your materials on Blackboard, it does take a little bit more time the first semester than it would setting up your course otherwise. But really, once we invested the time in getting the course reading list and getting Blackboard set up, after that, in future semesters, we can really just update things to make sure that we have timely articles in there. But it doesn't take a lot of work over time. So I'd say just start a little early. I'd recommend thinking about how you organize the materials so that students can find them. I tend to go in and put the readings, mark them by date, in addition to having them on the syllabus. I found that when I had everything organized at the beginning of the semester and I really oriented students on how to find the materials, even just I don't assume that they know how to find an ebook on the UTSA library website, so I go over that in class. So I found that when everything is organized from the beginning of the semester and you guide students on where to find things, they are more likely to read. And I tend to move the current readings up to the top of Blackboard. When I tried one semester kind of releasing the readings by unit, and I found that students were a little unclear on what they were supposed to be reading when. So having it really clearly articulated in the syllabus from the beginning and having it organized from the beginning of the semester seems to help. And then finally, choosing content that is accessible to the students. While there's a wealth of journal articles out there, they don't always do as good of a job summarizing the key elements of a subject that a textbook would do. And so, and students will sometimes say that they really appreciate that there's no textbook to purchase, but the readings might be dry. So trying to find content that's still accessible to our students and that really covers the material that we want to cover in the course. So when I think about challenges to this approach, I think the only thing that I really come back to is that I really hoped that by reducing the barrier of cost for students, that everyone would suddenly start reading in the course. And so you can guess what happened, right? So it maybe reduces barriers for some students, and it has lots of benefits, but it's not a silver bullet. Students still don't read course materials unless we use other strategies. And so I think that's one of the things I really would encourage folks who haven't taken this approach to consider doing it, but know that it's that we need to do other things in order to get students to read. So what do you think, other than cost, are the reasons that students don't read in your class?
They don't need to.
Okay, they perceive that they don't need to. Any others?
Lack of interest.
They're not interested? Yes?
Some of my students have disabilities that they're not necessarily getting services for.
Okay.
So I don't find out until we actually have to write that they may have these disabilities.
Okay, so some students have disabilities that make it really difficult for them and they're not getting the assistance that they need. Any others?
Fear.
Okay. Fear.
They're not going to understand it.
Yeah, fear that they might not understand. Right. So there, we could go on, and I think this is a topic Mary has done a whole workshop on designing your classes so that students will read, and I'd encourage you to look at her presentation on that. So in addition to having free and reduced textbooks, cost textbooks, there are other strategies we need to employ, and so I try and remember to tell the students what the reading is for the next class, and also give them some teaser questions to try and interest them in the reading. Giving them guidance on how to read the material. As I said, we post the readings on Blackboard with discussion questions so they know what to look for, particularly if they're just going to skim. Sometimes I require a reading response in class or on Blackboard, and at times I'll allow students to use notes from their readings on quizzes or tests, so that really motivates them to read the material and take notes. And I'm sure you have other strategies that you employ to get students to read the material. But I think it's just important to keep in mind that that we need to think holistically about what we've got to do to get students to read the material, not just reducing the barrier of the cost. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. And so I'd like to leave a little bit of time for questions. Does anyone have questions for our faculty presenters today on implementing OER?
I have a question. So do I understand that if you can request for e-copy of your textbook to be purchased? Is that, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so we've been doing that a little bit for some courses where there are not open textbooks available. We can look and see if we can purchase a copy of the book through the library and make sure that we have enough users, up the number of users, because usually it's typically 1 or 3 users, I think, is what it is. So we can up it so that we have enough to cover the number of students in your course. For traditional textbooks, a lot of those, of course, are not available to institutional subscription to the library, but we could look at other options. Maybe there's another book that's comparable to the one that you're looking at, so we could try that. Yeah, there are a whole slew of other options we could look at too, a lot of different avenues we go down. Whenever you email us with a request for a class, if you're looking for materials, we go through the different repositories and look to see what available OER there are, and then if there aren't any OER, we look and see what can we get through the library. So there are different ways we can go about it, but we can really provide a tailored, like custom list of OER for your class.
And you might, this might be following, but if you were interested, I have a couple classes that I just am interested in exploring the options. How would you go about that process?
Great, and so this is really great to segue into this. So if you're interested in doing this, we have a grant available right now where you can apply, and let me see if I can get this computer to work for me. Oops, get out of. So we have on our website, on the library website, you can see where you can apply for the grant, individual or group. So if you're thinking about doing this on your own for one of your courses, you could apply as an individual. If you think there are maybe some other professors or instructors that are interested in doing this in your department with you, you can apply for a group grant. You can also reach out to your librarian and we can work with you to find OER matches for the course. In some cases, it may be that there isn't an OER text available, but I wanted to be sure and show you guys a couple of things that I think are really helpful. So on our LiveGuides platform, we have a couple of OER guides. So we've created 2. There's one that has OER matches by discipline. So you can look for your area and find what is available overall. But we also have, and let me show you I'll just go to education as an example. So you can see the breakdown by area, and if there are OER available, we have those pulled out here. We also will sometimes link out to the repository where you can search for your area. And sometimes these are focus searches that it's taking you into. The one that I use a lot to identify resources is Merlot. I always start with that one, and they recently revamped their interface. It's called Merlot Institute. You've probably heard of it. It's a pretty popular OER search interface. But if you had your ISBN for your course, you can just plug it in here. And I found that the ISBN search really does a really good job of pulling out OER that are a close match for your course. Sometimes the keyword search, it's a little too loose, and you get way too many results that are not really relevant. But I always start here. I start with the ISBN. And it's really nice because it will give you a breakout of different types of formats that are here, so you can limit to OER. So, I'm sorry, open textbooks. So it'll break it out by material type. So if you're looking for a textbook, I'll just pull this filter in really quickly so I can see what is here. But the ISBN search really works really well. If you have that for your current text, you can just pop it in here. So you can start here, but definitely reach out to us too, because we can look at what can we get through the library. And Merlot is not completely comprehensive. There's not one search interface for OER that's completely comprehensive. So we can kind of dive into each one of those separately and see what's available. Another one that's really great is Open Textbook Network. I always start there too. So I start with Merlot, Open Textbook Network, and see what I can find. So the other great thing, if I don't happen to find anything on my own, we are connected to other librarians that are growing OER at their institutions. So I can reach out to those distribution lists and I can say, hey, has anyone encountered an electrical engineering open textbook? I have a professor that's looking for content for their class, but I haven't seen one, and I've done a few searches, I can't find anything. Does anyone know about that? So we have, as librarians, we kind of have our ear to the floor and we're listening, and so we're getting emails from distribution lists whenever there's a new OER text available for areas. We're keeping track of that and we're on top of it. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of growth going on with open textbooks. So even in just the short 2 years that we've been working on it, I've seen a huge explosion with the texts that are coming available. There weren't as many in the humanities, and now they're starting to crop up more. So yeah, so our grants application, we have a due date of this coming Sunday, the 25th, but I would say that's loose. We based that on the textbook, the campus bookstore's due date for textbooks for the fall. But in talking with them after we set this date, I realized that faculty continue to submit requests for textbooks after that into May. So we have a little bit of flexibility with that, but we would love to see you apply if it's something that you're interested in. Definitely, let others know in your department that this is something that's available, and we want to provide as much support for it as possible. So any questions that you have as far as finding OER, we would love to help out with that and provide those for you. So the course matches live guides, let me just show you that. Let's see, go back. So what we did last year is we worked really, really hard to provide matches for specific courses that are high impact here at UTSA, which means they're high enrollment, high textbook costs, and they have a high DFW rate. So the top 100 courses, we have matches here. And like I said, if these don't work out, or if you come here and you say, oh, this isn't really quite what I was looking for, we can do a custom search for you and present a list of OER that hopefully will work out too. And so you have a lot of different options available. You can customize, you can pull from different texts if you want to, a lot like Gina did, which is a really great strategy. If you don't find one that's maybe an exact match for you. So, any other questions anyone has right now? So you can always reach out to our faculty that shared their OER implementation stories with you today. I know they would love to help with answering any questions that you might have about implementing, transforming your course. I know that they would love to share that with you. I just wanted to say, in working with our faculty that are grant recipients, it's been really amazing working with you, providing that support, whether it was through email, providing matches for your class, hearing about how it's going. It's been really, really exciting. We're really so happy that this project has taken off and it's growing. So we're hoping to make an even bigger impact, and it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So your passion and your energy in implementing this in your class, it's not something that you have to do, but you're doing it because you know that it's going to make an impact on your students. And so it's just been amazing to watch you guys. So we'll have more stories like this every year, and we'll be able to showcase our faculty on the library website. We have that OER site where you can apply for the grant. We're going to grow that even more. So we'll be showcasing our faculty there that are implementing, sharing stories, because I think doing what we did today is really going to help it grow even more. So thank you all for your amazing work that you're doing in implementing OER. And if you have questions, reach out to me as far as the grant. Let me know if I can answer any of those. Your librarian can also help out with that too. So thank you all.